Welcome to another episode of the Para Cave podcast. And now over to your host, Troy Warner, broadcasting live from the world-famous Para Cave.
And yes, hello and welcome back to another episode of the Para Cave podcast. And this is part number 2 of the interview with Jim Wilson. I hope you really enjoyed part number 1 of the episode with Jim. It certainly was an interesting rugby league story. Now, in this part number 2, we go down a little bit of a different sort of a path. The common, I call them the common league questions, but I sort of turned it around into like sort of common, I guess you could say, journalistic questions or something like that, I guess. But it was, one question was what Jim would have done if he wasn't a journalist. One unique thing that people don't know about Jim Wilson, we had an interesting little chat about grand final entertainment and what it should be, which was certainly interesting. Can Australia host a football/soccer World Cup? That got thrown into the mix. And also we talk about his late sister Rebecca Wilson, who was heavily involved in rugby league and is sorely missed in the rugby league world. So this is part number 2, and let's get straight into it now, and I hope you enjoy part number 2 of the interview with Jim Wilson. I wanted to ask you about your late sister Rebecca Wilson, who had a distinguished career in the media and also in rugby league as well. She was the media manager for Super League for 4 years. That would have been any interesting insights did she pass on to yourself whilst you were working?
Well, you can write a book about it, and books have been written about it. It was an amazing time. It was, for Beck, who was a fearless journalist and a very good journalist and loved league. But to be part of that was a real challenge and confronting on a number of fronts. And I think that it was it was a full scale civil war.
That's right.
And a lot of powerful people and egos involved. And her job of creating or controlling the narrative and the media and communications and PR strategy, whatever. It was an enormous challenge and very demanding and challenging in so many ways. And I think that she enjoyed the experience, but I think that in a lot of ways it was something that I think that when she reflected on it, it was a high stress environment, and there was a lot of mudslinging and. Well, she's got a thick skin, Beck. She always had a thick skin, and we saw that with her columns in the Telegraph, and when she was on air with me on Sky, or the Fat or whatever, she'd have a very strong opinion. I didn't always agree with her opinion. In fact, we had some almighty blues professionally, but I always had a respect for her at the end of the day, and we were besties. I mean, we were not just brother and sister; we were best mates. And obviously, she died way too young at 54, and. I miss her terribly to this day, and I can't believe it's 8 years. And I've got another great sister, Lizzie, who lives in Brisbane, who loves the rugby league, and who's again I'm very, very close with. And my mother, who basically raised us three kids. And it's sort of one of those things that with Beck, she didn't take a backward step, and you always knew where you stood with her. And again, you didn't always agree with her. And I think some of the stuff she wrote, I certainly didn't agree with a lot of it. But she was fearless, and it was an opinion. She wasn't stating it as fact, like some commentators do these days, or journos, where they actually go and give an opinion and they think that's factual. Well, it's actually not. It's an opinion.
Okay.
Yeah. But she didn't sit on the fence. You've got to have an opinion, and she had a very forthright opinion. A very good journalist, and mate, she was one of the pioneers as far as women in rugby league and women in rugby league journalism. And I think Vonnie, who I love, Vonnie Sampson, Vonnie O'Keefe is just a very good friend. And I think when you look at people like Debbie Spillane, you think about the modern era of like Von and a range of those sort of Danica Mason at 9. the range of female talent at Fox.
Yeah.
I think a lot of them should, and I know they do, they acknowledge it. I know Vonnie, when I see her, she always acknowledges Beck's sort of pioneering, and in a very male-dominated world, they really appreciate what the likes of Beck and Debbie Spillane did, and people like Jackie Magnay, and it was what they did in those dressing rooms when it was very male dominated. It was it wasn't easy, but she had she like me, this Beck, loved rugby league from an early age, and again, sitting in front of the box with our grandfather and our grandparents and our mother, and as kids, Lizzie, myself and Beck, we'd just sit there and were glued to sport and glued to rugby league. So she read, I think, at the end of the day, rugby league was her number one sport. She covered Olympics, and she loved the Swannies in the AFL, and she loved cricket and loved the tennis, but her number one passion, overriding passion, was rugby league.
Well, did she ever give you a scoop during those Super League years? A story that you can remember that was massive? Help you out?
She was sort of. She sometimes did that. She was also very mindful of not blurring the lines with family, and a lot of it was such corporate legal speak, and fought out in courtrooms and lawyers and whatever. But there's a few things along the way that she sort of set my way, and and vice versa. I mean, we sort of, between the two of us, but over our careers, we sort of tic-tacked. And the same goes with Liz. Liz is also a journalist, and we sort of tic-tac on giving each other mail and sort of stories and yarns. And, so it's one of those things these things happen between journos.
Did you all support different teams or the same team?
Beck was Broncos.
Okay.
Never went to the never went for the Titans. I think she lives in Brisbane now. I think she might be Titans, or she might be Bronx. She loves the Cowboys.
Okay,
So she's obviously she's a Queensland supporter as well. So, but no, I think Beck was Broncos. 100% she was Broncos. And even when the Titans came in, she said, "Bro, you can go to the Titans, but I'm staying put. I'm staying at Red Hill."
Yeah, fair enough. I bet you there probably would have been a few banter between you guys when they played each other.
Yeah, there's a bit of that, and I think, obviously we used to be rabid when it came Origin time, like we were all on the same page. But when the Bronx played the Titans, or even the Broncos Cowboys, there was good friendly banter, family banter.
Yeah, no, that's for true. That's for sure. Let's go into some sort of personality questions. I call it the set of 6. Now, the first one will be really hard for yourself. Favourite sport outside of rugby league? And as I said, that one is going to be really hard for you.
Oh, can I give a silver, like a sort of a joint winner on that front?
Okay, yeah, for sure.
Okay, well, I'm going to go cricket and AFL.
Yep. Nah, fair enough.
And an honourable mention to football, to soccer. I think that I think the World Cup has gone past the Olympics. I think, and I've hosted 8 Olympics. I think the World Cup football is the biggest event on the planet now. And again, no disrespect to our Olympians, Paralympians. I just feel like the World Cup football has just become, it is the biggest event on the calendar.
Do you think Australia will ever host a World Cup in football?
Well, I'll tell you what, the way we hosted the Women's World Cup, I think was probably the best thing I've seen since the 2000 Olympics in Sydney. I think as a spectacle and as a nation getting behind an event, I've never seen. I knew it would be really big. I didn't think it would be that big. It was phenomenal. And so, why not? We've hosted Olympics. Yep. We've hosted World Expos. We can host. Of course we can. Why not? I think that. I mean, money talks. I mean, I went to Zurich going back probably 15 years now for the World Cup vote, where we were going for the World Cup, and we never stood a chance against Russia or Qatar because Qatar and Russia had so much more money than us, and it was such. We went into that in Zurich into the vote, and I thought we've got no hope in hell. and we were blown out of the water financially. And so the only reason why I'd say we probably wouldn't get a World Cup is because money talks, and we just simply don't have that money to match some of those, bigger countries who are just cashed up. But I think as far as hosting it, of course we can do it. We can do anything. This country's amazing. This country's a land of opportunity, and we when we set our minds to something, we do a great event. I think we do a better event. I mean, the English are great with pomp and ceremony, no doubts.
Yep.
But as far as like great events, I think Australians and Australia do a fantastic job, and I think there's no reason. Like we saw with the Sydney Olympics, was the best event that I've ever covered. The Sydney Olympics and Paralympics was the best Olympics and Paralympics that I've ever covered. And that's not being biased. It was a great event because the volunteers, some of the people listening to this podcast were probably volunteers. They made those games. The public transport worked. There were golden moments for our Olympians and Paralympians, but those volunteers, they made the Sydney Olympics and Paralympics. And so that's why I think, volunteer-wise, we see it with the tennis now, we see it with Origin. We can do a great event. And I've got no doubts that if we got the opportunity, we'd do a fantastic men's World Cup in football.
Well, I must thank you for that rap, because I was a volunteer at the rowing centre out near in Penrith here in 2000. Really? I actually was looking for something yesterday and pulled out my old volunteers jacket that we got.
You still got it?
Yeah, I've still got it. Yeah, definitely.
Well done.
So yeah, I always joke around with my daughter saying, it's probably somewhat a little true. I mean, I said, this is when I represented Australia at the Olympics.
You're a big part of it, mate. I'm telling you. I'm not being patronising. It's the volunteers, including yourself, whether it be the beach volleyball at Bondi, at the whitewater rafting canoe at Penrith, or the International Regatta Centre at Penrith, or the velodrome, or wherever. The volunteers were extraordinary, and they made those Olympics and Paralympics. And I think that you should be very, very proud of it. It's funny you should pull out your volunteers jacket. I pulled out my Olympic torch the other day.
Okay, yeah,
I ran with the torch up in Northern Territory before the games, and I've still got the torch. Although you'll love this, when I hopped on the plane from Darwin to fly back to Sydney, I had to take the gas canister out of the torch.
Yeah.
And I said, really? I really want to take this home because I want it for the barbecue.
Okay.
I want to be able to light the barbie
with torch.
With the torch, but they said, no, you can't have the gas canister on board, which I probably, safety-wise, I think I get it.
Yeah.
Then I got back to Sydney, I thought, where can I get a gas cylinder, and I could never find them. And so, unfortunately, the barbie has to be conventionally lit, but with a match.
So you still haven't found one?
No, I still can't find the gas canister. So if anyone's listening to the podcast, if they can tell me where I can go and find a gas canister for my Sydney Olympic torch, I'm all ears. Please reach out.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I mean, you're hosting a dinner party. I'll just light the barbecue and get the torch out and light it up.
Now, even lighting a few candles on the dinner table.
Yeah, true.
Just pull out the Olympic torch, bang.
Yeah.
Anyway, I've got to find the gas. I've got to find the gas canister.
That's a great one. Now, if you didn't go down the journalistic path for your career, what do you think you would have done?
It's a good question. I think since the age of 8, I went on this kids show called Wombat up in Queensland, where they went around the classroom. I was 8 at the time. They said, "What do you want to be?" I said, "I want to be a sports journalist. I want to be a journo."
Yeah.
And so I think from an early age, I always just wanted to be that. I wasn't smart enough to be a pilot. I would have loved to have been a pilot. I'm obsessed with aircraft. Like I love commercial aircraft. I love A380. I love it. I love flying. But I was never smart enough to be a pilot. So what else would I rather be? Mum was a school teacher. Maybe. I think teachers are so damn important. I think, Mum was a school teacher for 45 years. Maybe that.
Yeah.
Actually, I wouldn't mind being a lawyer because I was good at public speaking and debating. So, being a lawyer in a courtroom and sort of being third negative in the debating team and rebutting the opposition or the prosecutor or whatever, and that would have been. I reckon that would have been all right. But I mean, Chris did law, so my wife did law, but then she did law, but then she She would have been a great lawyer, but she always wanted to, I think she always deep down wanted to be a journo. So that's why she started in radio and then went into TV, and then she's now of course she's now hosting Drive on ABC radio and still hosting the news on Channel 10. So she loves being a journo and loves being a broadcaster, as I do.
Yeah.
But yeah, certainly it's an interesting question, that, what I would have done if I didn't do this. Maybe sports management,
Okay.
or administration, or
Just something to do with sports somehow.
yeah, something to do with sport. I mean, sport was everything. Like at school and growing up on the Gold Coast, and sport, we played sport. I played a lot of cricket, played a bit of rugby league, played a bit of union, played a bit of soccer. I was very fortunate, cross-country running, but I was fortunate that I had where I went to school on the Gold Coast, there was an array and a plethora of sports I could choose from. And so watching sport on the box, I think certainly, my dad was a journalist as well, a very famous correspondent, and I think journalism was in the DNA, so to speak, and so I think that's why journalism was always top of the heap and my number one pick as far as what I wanted to do.
How good at rugby league? How good a rugby league player were you?
Not great.
No.
I was a better cricketer. I was a fast bowler, and I played actually Queensland schoolboys in cricket, and I love cricket. I played alongside Craig McDermott and Ian Healy. I mean, they were a cut above. I'd get two for. I'd get a couple of wickets a week, and McDermott would get 8.
Yeah.
And Healy, I'd get 25, and Healy would get 100. So, and take 8 catches. So they were a cut above. But I love cricket. But I think rugby league was mate. I wasn't that good. I sort of stood in the centres or on the wing or whatever. And I was for a tall guy. I'm 6'5". I actually had a reasonable bit of speed. I've lost that speed now, though, Troy.
Okay.
But I had a reasonable speed for a tall bloke. So I used to be put out on the flank, and away we go, mate. It was on the wing or in the centres, and but I loved it. Was good fun. But such a demand. I mean, you look at now, and you look at first grade, and you look at Origin, and you just go NRLW. It's just so physical and fast.
Yeah, definitely.
It's great to watch. And and this whole thing saying, it's been sanitised and it's been over officiated. Well, it's garbage. It's still a great spectacle. I still love the game, and I can't wait for the season to start.
I think it's under 30 days. I think now, or just over 30 days till it kicks off in Vegas. What would be the one unique thing people don't know about Jim Wilson?
My secret love of birds.
Okay.
Which is sort of been brought up by Chris, but in particular Chris's our boy Darcy from an early age, an absolute bird nerd, and studied ornithology at university, and loves birds. And so when we go on holidays, mate, to Bali, right, we don't just sit around a lilo. We go bird watching, and we go bird watching in some very, very salubrious, luxurious backdrops, including the Nusa Dua Sewerage Works.
Interesting.
So we go to a sewerage plant outside Nusa Dua. Now, people who've been to Bali, Nusa Dua is famous for beautiful ritzy hotels and pools and pool bars, and have a bintang, and it's a good part of the world. We go bird watching and bird nerding at the Nusa Dua Sewerage Works, because the bird life, mate, at any sewerage works. So anyone listening, and your bird nerds will know this, your bird life at a sewerage works is the best you can possibly get. The variety of species, they're all there. And so the smell's also there, but, mate, the array of species is just next level. So there you go. I'm a closet bird nerd. Yeah.
There you go. I learnt something today about birds.
Yeah.
That they like sewerage works.
They like sewerage works, and obviously we've got a beautiful farm in the Lower Hunter Valley. And our bird life, especially since the bushfires in 2019, a lot of the birds have come in. And, the glossy blacks, you've got the You've got the gangs, you've got the yellowtails, you've got the king parrots, you've got the blue wrens, you've got the wedge-tail eagles. I mean, wedge-tail eagle is my favourite bird by a long way. The top of the food chain type thing, as far as all the pecking order, pardon the pun. But a wedge-tail eagle in full flight, mate, it's just something to behold. You know, I love raptors, but the wedge-tail in particular, is my number one.
Nice. Now, I usually say to like former players, which 3 former teammates, but for someone like yourself, which 3 former journalistic partners that you've worked with wouldn't you want to be on a deserted island with, and why?
I wouldn't want to be, or would want to be?
Well, you can make it if you want to be, but more so if you wouldn't want to be.
I'll give you both. I'd want to be on... Gee, this is a loaded question. The one you wouldn't want to be on there with is loaded, because it will get back. Okay. And so this is not an off the record. Anyway, let's have a bit of fun, bit of banter.
Yeah, that's it.
I'd want to be on a desert island. You there, Troy?
Yep.
Oh, sorry, you just dropped out. Sorry, mate.
Okay.
Let's start that again.
Yep.
Okay. Where did you get to? Where was
that? So, which 3 former journalistic, I guess you could say, teammates would you want to be on a deserted island with, and wouldn't? Yeah.
Okay. Right. I'd want it. This is a loaded question, because the wouldn't want to be. It's going to come back and bite me on the bum. But anyway, whatever. It's a bit of friendly banter. Let's have a laugh.
Yeah.
Okay. I'd want to be on a deserted island. I'd want to be with Bruce McAvaney, who has been a wonderful sports broadcaster, a great friend, and I think the best sports broadcaster I've ever worked with, and who's been very good to me over the years. I'd want to be on the deserted island with Richie Benaud.
Okay. Yeah.
Sense of timing, sense of occasion, best by a country mile as far as cricket commentators go. Although I do love Jimmy Maxwell, and I like Andrew Moore. I like Andrew Moore, actually, cricket and rugby league. I think Andrew Moore... you know what? Andrew Moore would be great, because he can turn his hand to anything. Andrew Moore, yeah, correct, and he can call anything, and he's a great caller. So I'm going to put Andrew Moore on there as well.
Okay.
Now, the ones that I wouldn't want to be on there with, let's see, who wouldn't I want to be on a deserted island with? Who just chew your ear off? Gee, that's a tough question. That's a very tough question. I'm just trying to think of the yappers I've worked with who just non-stop bend your ear, and who just wouldn't shut up. I mean, you're straight on a desert island, so you want to have a bit of banter.
Yeah.
But you also want to enjoy the tranquility, don't you?
What about any other presenters that have, might have played a prank on you at some stage, and you don't want them to do the same thing, or?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, yeah. There's been a few of them over the years that who have loved playing pranks on me. A couple of ones that I worked with in Melbourne going back in the 90s, because I was raised in Queensland, worked in Brisbane and in Sydney before I went to Melbourne for a stint. I reckon people like Sandy Roberts. Okay. Now, a lot of you, I don't know if you remember Sandy.
Yes, yeah. Sports World.
Yeah, correct. That's right. And Drew Morfitt was he loved a joke and a prank. ABC Radio, hosted The Winners, which is a very famous VFL show in its day. But a very good broadcaster, Drew, and loved a prank. So, yeah, actually, you know what? Those two would be right in there.
Okay, yeah.
And I reckon I'm going to throw Beck in there as well, my sister, because I'll tell you why. As much as I'd love to be on, no, this is God rest her soul, but mate, she'd inevitably get on to why rugby league, right, is such a better game than soccer and football.
Okay.
And I go, you know what, sister, I love rugby league, but there's room for all. No, there's not. I can't stand, and and I like soccer, right, and football. She used to blow up, about I was an ambassador at the Wanderers when they came in, the Western Sydney Wanderers in the A-League, and she blew up deluxe, and so she'd bend my ear off on an island, on the desert, on the beautiful island, and so I put her on there with Drew and Sandy.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, fair enough.
Nice. There's others I'd mention, but I'm not going to. Because they're the type of people. I'll leave this for you, and I reckon you'll get it. But we don't have to guess it right now. But I think listeners of this podcast will get it. There's a couple who I simply would really hate to be on the desert on the island with, and I've worked with them recently. I'm just going to leave it at that.
Okay.
I'm just going to leave it at that. And I'm just and they've got rugby league sort of backgrounds, and I'm just going to leave it at that. Right. I think I couldn't think of anything worse than being on a deserted island with, in particular, one individual.
Okay.
End of story.
Nice. All right. Well, we'll move on to the next question then. It's a bit of a two-pronged question. You're hosting a dinner party. What is the one meal that is your specialty that you're going to cook for 3 people?
Barbecue.
Yeah. Nice.
I'd like to say like a pasta, because I love a seafood linguine or even a bolognese or a penne, spicy penne with like an arrabbiata or a what's the other one I love that it's really good. Anything with pasta and seafood I love. So, but I'm not that good at cooking it. I love eating it.
Okay.
But barbecue, I can nail a barbecue. Nice. I can dead set nail. I'd cook a ribeye on the bone. Yeah. I do some thick sausages, because I've banned thin sausages. I love a thick sausage.
Okay.
And it doesn't have to be gourmet, up the wazoo sort of, fancy ingredients.
Flavored.
Just give me a beautiful thick beef sausage. Right, that's all I want.
Okay.
So that, ribeye on the bone. I'll do a Jimmy tomato salad with our tomatoes from the farm, our cucumbers from the farm, Spanish onion, capsicum from the farm, feta cheese crumbled over the top with some olives, a bit of balsamic, salt and pepper, potato and corn on the barbie.
Nice.
Done deal.
Well, I think the 3 people that you invite would love this meal. And who would those 3 people that you haven't met, either alive or dead, would you invite to the barbecue?
Who would I invite to the... Tell you what would be interesting would be to have, and I have met, I'd take Andre Agassi.
Oh, yes.
I'd take Tommy Raudonikis.
Oh, yes.
Purely, he just, between him and Agassi, born and raised in Vegas, right, they'd hold court. They'd just dominate, and it would be just fun. Third person, I like Serena, but we've got Agassi. I like Steffi. Obviously, Andre's married to Steffi, so that, that wouldn't be bad if you had Steffi and Andre, Steffi Graf,
yep,
and Andre, and to throw in Tommy Raudonikis. Imagine Andre and Steffi trying to get a word in with Tommy.
They wouldn't have a chance. They would not have a chance, not at all.
No, he'd dominate.
And who's your favourite musician or band to listen to?
What am I into at the moment? John Mayer. I like John Mayer. I like Coldplay. I like, I love all those sort of like Neil Diamond, the Doobie Brothers. My father-in-law Don loved the Doobie Brothers. The Stones. I mean, Akadaka's my number one. Okay. Like AC/DC are my number one. At my funeral, mate, I want Highway to Hell, or I want Thunderstruck, or I just want AC/DC. Okay. Right? I don't want to put a damper on our chat.
No.
But that AC/DC, and I've seen them live a couple of times. AC/DC, I just love, and I tell you what I'm getting into a bit at the moment. I'm not sure if you like it or not. Country, Western music, like music.
Yeah. I don't listen to it too much, to be honest.
Mate, I'm getting into it. I'm getting into that Luke Combs.
Yeah,
that
certainly getting pretty popular.
Saw him recently at the Olympic Stadium in front of a big. He sold out 2. Mate, it's phenomenal the rise of country sort of music, just in general.
Yeah.
It's just like around the world, but around this country, it is phenomenal how it's just gone through the roof. And Luke Combs was, mate, it was the best. It was such a great night. So yeah, I'm listening more and more of country music, and then I'm throwing a bit of John Mayer, a bit of Pete Murray, Chisel. I love Cole Chisel.
Ah, yes.
See, this leads me on to something. Why do we need overseas acts and entertainment at grand finals and at Origin?
Oh, you and I think alike so much, to be honest.
There's one exception to it. There's one exception.
Okay.
Robbie Williams was great at the AFL Grand Final a couple of years ago in that pink suit. He was brilliant. But mate, I'm sorry, we've got Cole Chisel, Hunters and Collectors, Midnight Oil, like hello,
just put them on rotation.
The Angels, Noiseworks, In Excess. Like, we've got so much great homegrown talent. Why do we have to go overseas and pay a fortune? And that's not disrespectful to Lionel Richie or Katy Perry or whoever, but mate, let's promote Aussie talent.
Yeah, sounds good to me. I thought all my stars were aligning in 2022 when Parramatta were playing Penrith in the grand final, and then Jimmy Barnes was the pre-game entertainment. I just thought everything was in place, and I've said that they should have Cole Chisel and Jimmy Barnes on rotation each and every year, but
well, I agree with that.
I'd be happy to throw in those other artists as well on rotation. That'd be awesome. And I agree.
We've got and great rising talent as well. Some really, really good talent. And I think, why do we have to go offshore? We should be promoting our talent. Would you imagine the Americans if they brought in like a foreign talent, to their Super Bowl?
Yeah.
I suppose with Coldplay or with Robbie Williams, they might do that, and they've done that in the past, I suppose. But you know what I mean? They usually promote local talent, American talent.
That's it.
So,
I totally agree with that one. And just before we go, what is keeping Jim Wilson busy these days?
I run my own consultancy firm. It's the Comms Gurus. I might as well give it a cheeky cross-promotion plug.
Give it a plug.
www.thecommsgurus, so thecommsgurus.com.au. Doing a lot of stuff with around communications training with senior management, CEOs, chair people, some politicians, some athletes, sporting bodies, whatever. So I sort of presentation train and communication training and media train some of them. Not just media training because it's very niche, but I do just making people better speakers and better communicators and having cut through with the audience. And I MC a lot of functions. I host a lot of functions and facilitate conferences around the country and host, obviously hosting Origin this year in Brisbane, Perth and Sydney. Host a few things for the AFL as well, but I'm keeping busy enough. I enjoy being able to sort of it gives me a lot of satisfaction to watch people's confidence grow when I'm in training sessions with them. Their confidence, their ability to speak and cut through with the audience and just real speak and be authentic and be themselves. That gives me a lot of satisfaction, and also the same with emceeing. I love hosting in front of a live crowd, and TV's great, and I love radio and I love newspapers. I've worked in all three, but there's nothing like getting up in front of 500 people or 1,000 people and holding court. It's great fun, and I love bouncing off a live crowd, and I'm fortunate to be still doing stuff at the age of 57 that actually I get out of bed thinking, geez, I can't wait for today. And
that's awesome.
But I had a great time at the Seven Network. I had 28 great years at Seven. I got a huge amount of respect for the chair and the major shareholder in Kerry Stokes. We've got a very good relationship with Kerry and his wife Christine, and I love working at Seven. And I love working at 2GB. The one thing I'll say about radio and 2GB was I love my audience. I love the fact you tuned in. I love the fact that we could make a difference to people who are getting done over by the government with compulsory land acquisition, or during the COVID years where people couldn't get across borders, which was just cruel when they were dying and wanted to see loved ones. And we made a difference. We rattled cages and we made genuine difference to people's lives. That gave me a huge amount of satisfaction when I was hosting Drive on 2GB. And, I think it's they're the things you take away. And now I've progressed to this stage of my career and I'm loving it. So I'm very, very fortunate. And you work hard. My mother's always taught me as a school teacher. She said, you got to work hard. Don't be a clock watcher.
Yep.
Be passionate and be enthusiastic about what you do. And I've still got that passion and enthusiasm for what I do now. And as I said, it gives me I do a bit of crisis management as well with companies who are trying to put out fires, and I advise them. And it's a really interesting. I've got a really interesting bag of stuff that I do now, and again, I'm fortunate enough to be able to pick and choose what I do, and I can work with clients who I like.
Yeah.
And I'm very lucky, and I'm happy with my lot, so to speak.
Ah, nice. And you forgot to add growing homegrown veggies on the farm as well. Which is probably cheaper on your grocery bill as well.
Well, I think certainly 100% spot on. I can't get over when you go into Woolies or Coles or Aldi or Harris Farm and you go, the cost of like herbs and veggies and general cost of living across the board. So many of your listeners, and it's just people are feeling the squeeze. So to be able to go and walk up to the veggie garden and go and pick your what you're going to have for dinner that night, it's it eases some of the strain on the hip pocket, so to speak.
That's it. Well, Jim Wilson, thank you very much for joining me on the Para Cave podcast today. Maybe when Parramatta play the Gold Coast at Combank Stadium later on in the year, we might be able to catch up maybe and have a bit of banter maybe. But thank you very much for joining me today.
Good on you, Troy. I love chatting with you, mate. And I love your passion for not just para, but the game in general and in sport across the board. I think, it's... I think your podcast is going gangbusters, and I take my hat off to you. I can't believe, what time is it here? We've been going for an hour and a quarter, mate.
I know.
It feels like a 5-minute chat, which is a feather in your cap, mate. Well played, and thanks for having us on the podcast, and we'll catch up during the year at a game of footy.
Sounds good. Welcome back, and thank you for listening to part number 2 of the interview with Jim Wilson. I hope you really enjoyed it. Had a fantastic response to part number 1. And it was great to see. Jim is very well loved in the media world, the sports world as well. One that I certainly have followed throughout the years on Channel 7 and also on 2GB, and have caught up with it a couple of times as well. And as I said, I hope we can catch up in 2025 at a Parramatta Eels game or a rugby league game throughout the season. But thank you very much again, Jim, for your time and your chat. You are welcome anytime on the podcast. Now, coming up on the podcast, plenty of content coming your way. There will be game reviews. The second trial would have been run and done between the Parramatta Eels and the West Tigers by the time this podcast comes out. So there will be a game review of that one coming out. And starting next week, we will have the tipping podcast with myself and my daughter Ella come back, as well as next Sunday, I think it is, the 2nd of March in Australia, the 1st of March in America, the round 1, or round 0, some people like to call it anyway, kicks off in Las Vegas. So the Cronulla Sharks are taking on the Penrith Panthers, and the New Zealand Warriors are taking on the Canberra Raiders over there, as well as Wigan versus Warrington, and also the Gillaroos are taking on the English team as well, the English women's team. So 4 great games being played over there in Las Vegas. But it is the tipping podcast. It will make its return to the audio waves, and it will be with myself and Ella as well. So we'll only tip those 2 games, as I just mentioned before, and then the week after we will do the other remaining games in round 1. Now, don't forget to join the Para Cave podcast tipping competition for season 2025, the NRL. Some great prizes up for grabs, thanks to our great sponsors, the Ashore Strata Reports, and also Buddy Oldman Masters Boxer. So combined, we have $900 in prize money, and first place will get $425, second place $275, third place $175, and fourth place $25. So the link is in the podcast description on Instagram, so please follow Ashore Strata Reports on Instagram, follow Buddy Oldman Masters Boxer on Facebook, and you can follow the Paracave Podcast on both Instagram and Facebook as well. That would be most appreciated, and it is through ESPN Tips, so it is nice and easy through that one, but the link will be in the description of the podcast on Instagram, so check that one out. I'll also do some posts leading up to the kickoff of the competition as well, so you do not miss out. We have about 65 people, I think, that have joined, so thank you very much for joining that one. So if you know any rugby league mad people who think they know everything about rugby league and can tip some winners, then join the Paracave Podcast NRL tipping competition. So that will be great fun indeed. So that one is starting soon, so keep an eye out for that one. But other than that, some plenty more content coming your way on the podcast. So please stay tuned to the Instagram page for details of what's coming out. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for the support. I really appreciate it as well. And as I always say, the Paracave Podcast, by the fan, for the fans. Go Para!
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Paracave Podcast. See you next time.